As always, I am so thrilled when I get to talk about energy healing, crystals, meditation, tapping, all these modalities that I love and use. And today's guest is an expert. I've just finished reading her yummy, yummy book. This is like the best because it tells you how to integrate and use all these fabulous tools we're going to talk about. Karen Frazier is the author of books about metaphysics, crystal healing, energy healing, dream interpretation, and the paranormal. As a professional writer, she's a ghost writer as well for a number of books and has penned hundreds of articles for a variety of topics. She's a columnist for Paranormal Underground magazine, and she currently writes 2 columns for 2 magazines, Dreams and Symbols and Metaphysics and Energy Healing. She's also the co-host of the Intention is Everything podcast. Karen's an intuitive energy healer, a Reiki master, also a Reiki master for animals, and does crystal healing practitioner, sound healing practitioner, and she's an ordained minister for the International Metaphysical Ministry. She holds a Bachelor of Metaphysical Science, a Master's of Metaphysical Science, as well as a PhD in Metaphysical Parapsychology. And she's currently working on her doctoral dissertation, focusing on sound as a source of spiritual healing in order to earn her Doctor of Divinity in Spiritual Healing. Wow, girl, that's a mouthful. That is a lot of accomplishment. Whoa, okay. So I loved your book. It's absolutely wonderful. The Little Book of Energy Healing. It's fabulous. However, you know, every guest that's come on the show who's fulfilling their purpose on this planet, doing this beautiful work the way you are, has had a journey to get here, has had challenges to get here, has had to overcome things to get here. So share with us a little bit about your pathway up to this point of creating all these beautiful books and magazine articles and podcasts.
Sure. Well, so I actually grew up in the church, grew up in a pretty strong Christian family here up in the Pacific Northwest where I still live. And I was always a very curious soul. And so when other kids were buying into anything that they taught us in Sunday school, I was asking questions and having it gently suggested that maybe I shouldn't. And that didn't sit well with me even when I was 6 or 7 years old. And I was the kid who would lay awake in bed at night and kind of with my hands on my blankets and stare up at the ceiling and contemplate things like infinity and the universe and what happens to, so I was kind of born with this really curious soul, and I like to have questions answered. And the more I ask questions, the more I realize there really aren't any definitive answers to anything. So I've had to create my own answers. And when I was a young adult, I stepped away from the church and basically decided I was an atheist, which, by the way, is the phase that my 22-year-old son is currently in. So I recognize the phase because so far he's followed mine pretty much right along the path. And so I went through a phase where I was an atheist and then an agnostic, and I didn't believe anything, but I had always had things about me that were different than other people, things that were strange. I knew things. I saw things, I heard things, I felt things, and these weren't necessarily normal things. And for many, many years, they gave me a lot of anxiety and anger and frustration and fear because I didn't understand what they were, but I knew that they weren't okay based on the way that I had been raised in the church. And so I suppressed all of these parts of myself, and really it just led to my life not being great and not being happy. And for the first probably 35 years of my life, I did a pretty crappy job of steering my life. I was divorced twice. I'm currently on my 3rd marriage. I had my son when I was 30, he sort of started to help flip things around for me, because you have to sort of get your act together, right? But when I was in my, probably when I was about 33 or 34, I was going through my second divorce from my son's husband, from my son's father. And it was a difficult one, because he was a malignant narcissist. So that was really kind of tough. But I was sitting there one day and I thought, I'm trying to steer my own ship and I'm not doing it well. And I had followed a lot of things. Like I'd read a lot of things like Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, and some of the Abraham Hicks work. And, so I'd read a lot of channeled material, the Seth materials, the Emmanuel materials, things like that. And they really resonated with me. And I was trying to use them to control my life and to create this path that I thought I wanted to be on. And what I realized is the things that I was supposedly intentionally creating were not making me happy. And so I finally one day, just sort of in the midst of all of this chaos and turmoil that was my life, hated my job, getting a divorce, had no money, all of those things that we all go through. And I just thought, that's it. I'm done trying to figure this out on my own. I'm done trying to control this. And at that moment, I actually surrendered to the universe. And I said, okay, whatever this it is, whatever these things I have going on in me, whatever these impressions that I get and these ideas that I get and these voices I hear and these things I see, let those be for a purpose, and let my purpose be whatever the universe intends for me. And so essentially I surrendered. And that was when everything started to turn around. And that's when I started to do this work.
I love it. Surrender. Is a powerful process.
That's a hard one, because I tell you, I'm a controller and a fighter. So
me too. Right in there. And so for me, it was 25 years of drinking and self-condemnation and bad choices and failed relationships. And once I surrendered, once I gave it all up and said, I don't have one more day in me to do this shit anymore.
Yeah.
Everything changed.
Yeah.
I got sober like that. Life just became miraculous over a period of a couple of years. And I no longer feel like I have to control. I have so much trust that good things will come to me. As you said, the universe is going to deliver. As Gabby Bernstein says, the universe has your back. It does.
It does. It does. And I had a friend, so once I had hit this surrender point, and that's the dark night of the soul is what you're talking about. And I think we all have to get there before we surrender. Like if you read like Byron Katie, for instance, Byron Katie, she, was in just this mess. And then one day she woke up and hardly knew who she was anymore. But it changed everything. And so I forgot what I started to say because I got into Byron Katie.
But it's about surrender and that willingness to say, I can't do it my way anymore.
Yeah, and I will tell you, I still fought it on and off for a few years, but it was a turning point for me. I fought it in different ways, and I still do. I mean, I still am a very questioning person. I still, I still like to think that I'm driving my ship, even though I know that I didn't. But the other thing is, once I had that surrender, then maybe about a year or two later, I was talking to a very wise person in my life who I absolutely adore. And she said to me, I just have to ask myself if I believe that the universe is a benign place. And if the universe is here to help or hurt. And I just can't believe that the universe is here to hurt. And that was really, I haven't looked back since then. But I did still flop around like a fish for a couple of years, but not as much as I had.
Well, you got an awful lot of degrees, girl, so you didn't do too much flopping around. I'll tell you, you've been very, very busy.
Well, I like to know stuff.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, but what really piques my interest is how you have gotten into this energy healing in such a big way. And now the sound healing. I mean, I am so intrigued by that because I love crystal bowls. I love going to a full moon gong. I just embrace all of that. So tell us a little bit about the sound healing that you're now getting, your doctorate in.
Sure. So I believe that sound is sacred. I believe that everything around us is energy, and this physical form that we take on is just an illusion. So we'll start there. I believe that it's been shown that all matter is just little vibrating strands of energy separated by vast distances and held in place by force fields. So that's what you are, that's what I am, and we're all made of the same stuff. And so if that is the case, then anything that can cause those particles to vibrate at a different frequency can change the nature of those particles. And so that includes sound, because sound has frequency, light has frequency, color has frequency, and everything else. And so I primarily, with the sound healing, I primarily work with ancient Tibetan singing bowls, which are beautiful. I have some modern ones, and then I have some crystal bowls, but I tend to be mostly drawn to the Tibetan instruments, which are, they're made of the bronze. And so there's the singing bowls and the gongs, and they have bells and tingshas and things like that. And just the first time I struck one of those, there was something in me that just went, and so I use the sound with everything else. So I don't typically do any, unless somebody asks me specifically for one modality, I don't typically do my energy healing in isolation. So if somebody comes to me for a healing session, I'm going to use crystals, and I'm going to use the bowls and the bells and the gong. Well, I don't have a gong right now, but it's on the list. But the bowls and the bells and the tingshas and all of those things. And I'm going to use Reiki, and I'm going to use things like tapping and EFT and all of those things, anything I feel, and I am guided intuitively on how I use those, because that's where my gifts come in, where I said I always felt these things I didn't understand. I'm empathic, and I used to think being empathic was a curse, because you feel everybody's everything, and I'm physically and mentally empathic. So if somebody's with me and they don't feel well physically, guess what? Neither do I. But what I discovered is that in energy healing, I can use that not as something that is a negative, but as something that can help people and can create a higher vibration in the universe. And then the rest of the time, when I'm out in the real world, I can shut it down, at least to a certain extent, so that I'm functional.
Love it. Yeah, I'm very sensitive to people's emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
I can look right into their eyes and just feel where they're at.
Yeah.
And if they're sad or grieving or feeling insecure or low self-esteem, I feel that energetically. And I never understood that until recently, just in the last couple of years, that I was feeling other people's stuff. And sometimes I take on their thoughts. And I realized they're not my thoughts, they're their thoughts. And so it's been fascinating to learn all of this, because before I thought there was something wrong with me. And now I know, no, these are kind of sensory gifts.
Yeah.
And you just have to understand them and work with them. Now, you mentioned several modalities, which you have in here. And you've got such wonderful, brief, easy to understand descriptions of how to tap, about bowls, about meditation. I just couldn't believe the amount of information in here. And then an entire summary on every chakra and the emotional, spiritual aspects, the crystals, the oils, everything to use, and daily rituals. I mean, it just goes on and on. This is just one of the best books I've seen out there for somebody who's starting this path of spiritual inquiry, wanting to use other tools that are going to help them to feel better, and also to use those tools to help others to feel better. So it's such a powerful book.
Thank you.
What are your three favorites?
It depends on the day.
I get it totally.
So probably I use crystals every day.
Mhm.
I use my sound tools every day.
Mhm.
And if I don't have my sound tools with me, I can use my voice or
Mhm.
I can use apps on my phone, although I feel live vibrational stuff is better than
Yep.
earbud vibrational stuff. Um, and then probably Reiki. I teach Reiki more than anything else because I used Reiki as the platform for teaching energy healing as a whole. And so my Reiki classes are quite different than other people who teach Reiki. I teach the things that you need to know for Reiki, but I also teach the things you need to know to be a healer because I feel that's really important.
Beautiful. Um, when you're talking about some of your sound tools for someone who's just starting out on this path, that maybe can't get a whole set of crystal bowls or a whole
Right.
set of, I have one
Only
singing bowl.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a specific note or range that that bowl should have for the beginner?
I don't think so. I think what you do is you go, first of all, I think that you buy them in person instead of online so
Oh,
that you,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yes.
um, and then because there's lots of places you can buy them online. And I think what you do is you go and you let the bull choose you. That's how all of my bowls have come to me. Is my very first bowl that I got was down in this little antique shop, a Tibetan antique shop in San Diego, in Old Town San Diego, and it just it chose me. And I believe that with all of my tools, my bowls choose me, my bells choose me, my crystals choose me. We choose each other because there's a resonance and a synergy there that we can work together. And so I think what you do is you go into a shop and you close your eyes and just for a minute feel, and then go where in the direction you're drawn, and then play some of the bowls, play them and see how they feel in you. You want them to feel challenging but good.
That's what I did. I wanted a Tibetan bowl in the worst way. And I was in India and most of them were so huge. And I said, how am I going to get this home? This is not going to go well. And it's probably going to get dented and crushed. So I waited till I came home and I went to several shops. And then I was in this one shop and I played 4 or 5 bowls, but I kept going back to one specific bowl. The sound, I could feel it in my heart. I could just feel this beautiful vibration in my heart when I played that bowl. And I knew that was my bowl and I had to bring that one home.
I see, and I think that's right. And I think more people need to trust that.
Yeah.
And that's it. Play several, and you'll know there's just this feeling inside of you that's like, oh, it's this one, and that's because it's calling you. It's choosing you.
Yeah, I know. When you work with the crystals, because I love crystals, I'm not as well versed in them as you are by any means. Is there a particular way to start? Is it putting them on the body? Is it just putting them in your energy field, in your aura space? What do you recommend?
For starters, just have them in your space, and then think about wearing them as jewelry. And one of the easiest things you can do is meditate with them. Hold them in your receiving hand, which is the your non-dominant hand. So if you're right-handed, it's like your left hand. And just hold them and close your eyes and just sort of connect into that crystal and let it let and feel it.
Yeah. I'm actually putting my crystals out on Sunday for the new moon to give them a cleansing, to give them a
Perfect.
recharge. I have them on a selenite strip, like a recharging strip, and I put them all out. I think my neighbor thinks I'm a little nutty, and I have them all out there, you know. So I put them all out and get them charged in the moonlight or the new moon, and usually make a little, sometimes a bowl of moon water, and then I'll even put them in a separate container in the moon water just to get the vibration of that.
Yeah.
What is your daily practice like? Because I'm a strong believer that having a daily spiritual practice is the most empowering thing that we can do for ourselves as
I
women.
agree.
It
I
has
agree.
changed my life completely. It has changed my business skills completely. It has changed my in every aspect of my life. Having a spiritual practice has made a dramatic change. So what is your practice like daily?
Well, so for me, I believe in, so I used to be very, very formal and regimented in my practice. And I often, back in the day, I mean, I tried meditating when I was in my 20s, even when I was still going through all of my stuff. And I resented it because I thought my mind never shuts up. I can't sit here quietly. My meditations just never went well because they would be this. I would think, okay, good. Look, I'm thinking of nothing. Look at me. My mind is clear. This is so cool. My mind is clear. And then I'd be like, oh crap. And so for me, movement meditation is really what finally started to lead me into being able to engage in a daily practice. And now my daily practice really varies based on the day. I give myself Reiki every day. I spend time with my singing bowls and crystals every day, even if it's just for 5 minutes. And then sometimes, then probably about 4 or 5 times a week, just depending on how much I've got going on in my life. I will meditate too. And it really depends. I have to meditate with dogs. I have 2 small dogs. I have shut them out of this room. That's why they're not here right now. So, it's varied over the years, but right now I meditate for probably about 30 minutes several times a week. And I do that with crystals and a singing bowl. Sometimes I'll meditate with a prayer wheel, a Tibetan prayer wheel. So I use a lot of just different things. I just try to make sure that I set aside at least 10 minutes every day just for myself. And I try to make it longer, although sometimes I fall prey to how busy life is as well.
I have a meditation buddy also, an English Jack Russell Terrier, who she's 10 years old. I mean, she gets in my lap and she just throws her head back and she's like on her back and her legs are just up. It's hysterical. And sometimes I'll take like a selfie of her in my lap and I'll post it to Facebook and people just get hysterical. They're like, oh my God, I don't believe that dog. She's used to it. She knows I have this routine and I give her her breakfast and she eats it fast and then runs so she can get into my lap when I'm settling in for some meditation.
Animals, no, my dog Monkey she's a little 6-pound Brussels Griffon. She's very little.
Oh,
and when she sees me doing Reiki where she can reach, she will run and wiggle her paws underneath me or put her paw on top of my hands.
love it. I know they know, they sense the vibe. They feel all that energy. And the fact that you do Reiki with animals, of course, they know. Now, I just read a book about doing Reiki with animals, and I was practicing on Hannah. She was a very, very good subject to work on. She loved it.
Some of them like it, and some of them don't. So we used to have 4 dogs. 2 have died in the last couple of years, 'cause just getting old. And one of the dogs that died, she would not have anything to do with it. The other one, the only time he really wanted anything to do with it was when he was super old and sick at the end. And I actually was giving him Reiki when he died, which was, I think, a really special connected moment. But my dog Monkey, man, she wants it all the time. Her little body fills up with it fast. So it's like a little 5-minute session because she's just only 6 pounds, but.
Oh, wow.
And I also drink crystal water, so that's part of my daily practice too.
Oh, girl, I love you because I'm looking at one of those. I want to get one with a rose quartz in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I just had an energy healing session done on myself yesterday by a woman that's very well known, Lisa Campion, very well known in the Reiki field and energy healing. And she had one with an amethyst, and I said, I want to get one of those with the rose quartz. So she was telling me where she got hers. What do you have?
Mine is one of the gem water bottles, and it's got rose quartz and amethyst and clear quartz in it.
Oh, it's called Gem Water. I'll have to. Is that a website or?
Yeah, just look up Gem Water.
Great, terrific. Because that's becoming more recognized as something to do, to put into your body. That
Yes,
a
and
crystal water.
I like it because it's enclosed in a glass pod.
Yeah,
I feel like, I mean, I know it's that quartz-based crystals aren't going to leach anything, but I just feel like when you're putting crystal stuff in your mouth, it should probably be just the energy and not the crystals.
exactly. Yeah. No, I
Mhm.
want something contained as well.
Yeah.
Well, you, Karen, you're just a breath of fresh air. You've just got so many skills and so many gifts that you're bringing to the people that you work with. How can the audience find you? Give them your website, um, your domain address, and also if you have any free downloads or meditations or anything on your site, also please point that out.
I do have a couple actually. So my website is author Karen Frazier. Frazier is spelled Frazier. I have to spell it because I couldn't spell it until I married him. .com. So on Facebook, you can find me under author Karen Frazier. And then like on Twitter and Instagram, it's like author K Fraz or something like that because it was shorter. And on my website, I actually do have there. If you go to the meditation tab, I do have some guided meditations that I've put in there.
Wonderful.
And then there's also like a list of all of the books that I've written,
Yeah.
the ones that are coming out.
Oh. Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed this. I'm doing a workshop next week, and I'm working with these women on self-love. So we're going to be doing the Thunderbolt Mudra. I love that.
Oh,
Beautiful. Oh, I love
I
it.
love mudras.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I can't say the Indian name for the life of me, the Vajra Pradama Mudra, but Thunderbolt works for
Close
me.
enough.
So just for the audience, if you're going to treat yourself to one book on energy healing and techniques and something so simple with just the most beautiful layout of it's like a little mini textbook on how to do all this stuff. I just can't recommend it enough. Energy healing techniques by our wonderful guest today, Karen Frazier. Thank you, ladies, so much for being on today. I have just loved being with you.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, bless you, girl. Wonderful. Thanks again.
Mm-hmm.